Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Hemiverse, your guide for everything going on in the Hemiverse. I, of course, am Colin Vredenberg, but this time not joined by my co-hosts. We are experimenting with a little bit of a different format. As you might probably know, we do the news up front, and then usually move into our guest and or discussion segment. This time, well, at least for the last few weeks, we've noticed that the news has been very sparse, and that's sparse at best and mostly just nothing, which is sad, but, kind of what life is nowadays. So, instead of doing the news, I'm going to do a short introduction myself, where I'll update you on anything that needs to be updated. And then we'll move into our guest segment. Our guest this week is Hans Heim of the Ox School in Germany, or one of the founders of the Ox School in Germany, a very cool guy and a very good friend of Nathan's, who David and I met through Nathan at the last Purple Heart Open. Fantastic guy, fantastic HEMA practitioner, and just general expert on Messer. So this week we will be talking about Messer. Before we get started, the one thing I do want to address is our AMA. So we were going to have an Ask Me Anything. It was supposed to be Friday night on the 6th of November, I think. Well, those plans all fell through for a couple of different reasons. We were supposed to have a big trip, and we were all going to meet together and do it all together in person, and, well, that just didn't pan out, unfortunately. In any case, this segment is over. And it's time to hop into our conversation with Hans about Messer. So please enjoy. All right, so today we have with us our very good friend Hans Heim. Hans is the founder of Ox, one of the largest HEMA schools in Germany, boasting over 250 members. He's often recognized as one of the world's foremost experts on Messer and specifically Le Kushner. Hans, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, nice to be here.
So we always, as our first question, ask, tell us the story of how you got started in HEMA.
I think I have to start with my start in martial arts. The first time of my martial arts has been a search for the right out for me. Started as a kid with a little bit of karate, and I really quickly discovered that's not mine. Because I always have been fascinated about messers or blades and swords. And in my hometown, Landshut, there's a really nice castle. And we got a really, really big Renaissance fair with over 2,000 people joining and a really good jousting. And so my fascinating about blades has been everywhere over my childhood. And I started collecting knives, pocket knives, as I've been 17. But in the 70s and 80s, or especially in the 70s, as I'm growing up, martial arts with blades has been really rare in Germany. And at some point, I came to stick fighting, to Eskrima, Filipino martial arts. And this has been really the thing for me at this point of my life. I trained it for over 10 years. And I finally got in contact with Pekka Tirshakali. And Pekka Tirshakali and I have been great for me. It's been really, really perfect. Because it's blade focused and with tactical knives and also with bigger knives. It's really, really great stuff. But, and there is a but, a friend of mine has been a work colleague traveling out to Renaissance fair and get a notice, learn to sword fight, learn to fight like a knife, like a knight. So yeah, we joined it. And I get really impressed, but I also noticed what they showed us has not really been martial. It's more or less like stage fighting, like show fighting, fighting for a Renaissance fair. So we wanted more, and this has been in the times, where the internet just started. So now it is easy to get in contact with somebody who trains HEMA, but at 1997, not very much around with HEMA. So we searched and we found John Clements. And we brought John Clements over there and started a seminar with him. And the seminar has been really great. And I remembered one thing from him, very, very good. He talked to us, why do you bring an American over to Europe to show your European martial art? Why don't you do research for yourself? This had been a good idea. So, yeah, really brilliant idea. So we go to the Bavarian National Library, and there we found the Lehrküchner, the fancy book of Paulus Karl. And you open the Paulus Karl, and it is brilliant. It's made like, it looked like it has been made yesterday, and also Lehrküchner. And there I realized I want to learn more about this, because I love books, I love history, I love swords. So it is. And this has been really the kickoff. So friends are coming together, like Alexander Kiermaier and Klaus Drexler, and we founded OX. And we noticed I noticed that the longsword and the Langes Messer has always the things that I wanted to do. It's been so naturally for me to handle this weapons. It's like the thing I always missed. And especially the Lehrkühner is so fascinating. It's brilliant. And the Lange Messer, if you open your eyes, you see them on paintings in churches. You see them nearly, a lot of Langes Messer around everywhere nearly in a special time period. And this is really fascinating. It has been the weapon from peasants. It has been the weapon for knights, and Langes Messer has been nearly everywhere. But now they are really rare in museums, because there has been not so brilliant, and it's not a sword, because the sword is a knightly weapon, especially the long sword is a knightly weapon. The long sword is everywhere, but I think if we could count the amount of Messer and the amount of swords from this time period, the Messer would be everywhere, and the sword only small pieces. But they are so useful, so that they have been wasted off and used off.
Yeah, they're very. They always seem to be like very utilitarian,
Yes.
very, very functional. What? So is that what kind of drew you to the Messer specifically? Because I know you do longsword too as well.
Yeah,
but
most times, even if I gave training in the Ox, nearly 80% of my training has been longsword, and only 20% Langes Messer. But I think also at one point everybody wants to make and train Langes Messer, longsword, and everybody shows up. Yeah, I got this longsword. I'm the trainer for longsword, and so. And at one point, I'm not always the guy who runs in the same direction of everybody. So if everybody trains longsword, everybody shows longsword, there has been my thinking, okay, when everybody does longsword, where could I do something different? So I took the Langes Messer. And the Langes Messer and the stick fighting, especially from Pekka Tirshakari, has very, very big similarities. At one point, I showed Turon Leo Guy the Lehrküchner, or pieces of the Lehrküchner, and he told me, oh, this I know, and this I know, and blah, blah, blah. And there are so many similarities between them, because it's nearly the same length, like a stick or like a cutting blade from the Filipinos, and the same weight. And what you do, you get one-edged or one-edged weapon with a short edge on the other side. Yeah, it's in Piccadilly Tirschakadi and Lekino is very similar, so it has been easy for me to swap off.
Huh.
And yeah, it's so natural.
That's interesting. I never would have thought, but I'll have to brush up on my Filipino stick fighting then.
Yeah, do it. You see a lot of disarms in the stick fighting or in Eskrima, which are shown in the Lehrkirchner, really one-to-one. Like I showed the disarm with the carrot. This is also the famous known snake disarm from Filipino martial arts.
Oh, well, I know that maybe most of our viewers don't know, but if you ever take a workshop or seminar with Hans, make sure to bring a carrot. It is not a joke. Whereas when I went to his workshop at FO 2019, is that right?
I think so, 2019
It must have
or
been
2018.
It was either 2019 or 2018. But he put it in the description, bring a carrot, and nobody took him seriously except for me, and I brought a whole bag. But no, it really does help because it's the snake disarm. Carrot goes up, carrot goes down, carrot goes around, and it's something that now it's like burned into my subconscious. I'll never forget it.
And you got this so perfect. Yeah.
And it works so well whenever you're in that short close distance.
What I really want to know if Hans has ever used the carrot to actually disarm someone.
No, sorry.
He has nothing in hand other than a carrot, and so quick, disarm done.
Well, you know what? You did teach us one of the no sword disarms, the one where you push to the side.
Yeah.
Right? You did teach us that one. So you could have a carrot in your hand for that one.
Yeah, sure.
It wouldn't
or
help.
A pen.
It wouldn't help.
It wouldn't help, but it wouldn't hurt.
But if you seen John Wick and you know how many people killed John Wick with only a pen, yeah.
Oh man. So let's talk a little bit about Messer specifically, because I get the feeling that we have a lot of viewers who are kind of beginners at this, that maybe have done longsword, maybe have done rapier, but maybe haven't strayed out into some of the other weapons. And you being an expert, talk to us a little bit about what Messer is, specifically Long Messer and Krieg Messer, and also what sources it appears in.
Okay, just for your imagination, Langes Messer is more or less a big Bowie knife on speed. A blown up Bowie knife.
I'll put a picture up in post so that everybody can see.
Yeah. And there are also similarities between the use of the Messer and the Bowie knife.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the famous back cut with the Bowie knife, which is more or less a Zwerchhau, or with the Messer, also a Krumpau or Wecker, which is called a Wecker and Krumpau and Messer.
Mm-hmm.
And the Messer it's a one-edged weapon with a short edge at the back. That's more or less. That's it.
So,
and the Kriegsmesser, it's a bigger, longest Messer. And the Kriegsmesser you use it with two hands. The Messer you use normally with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Some messers have longer grips that you can use it with two hands, but normally it's a grip which is not totally, or the Messer Lehrkirchner uses, because that's not only the Messer. The Messer has so many varieties. It could have a short grip, it could have a curved blade, It could have two small edges on the back. It could be a straight edge. It could be a straight edge with no second sharp edge on the side. But the Messer has always one thing, one specialty: the nail. That's a hand protection at the back of at the side of the back of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
this makes it famous.
For our non-German speaking, the Nagel, it means nail, right? It's
like Nagel, nail, yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, great! David's got one.
And it's first of the longest Messer which has been shown. The nail, the Nagel, has been really a nail. Afterward, there could also be like an oyster or like a ring or like a bow. It's to protect your fighting hands. Yeah. And if you have a right-handed Messer, it has been on the right side of the blade. If you've got a left-handed Messer, it's on the left side of the blade. And the Kriegsmesser, it's not so often seen. You see it in later times more, which is going more or less to the Renaissance and with the Landsknecht. There, the Kriegsmesser shows up a little bit more. But in the beginning, the longest Messer could have been blade lengths or total lengths between 80 centimeters and 1 meter. This is in Euro system.
Up to about 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. In our system.
So would the Kriegsmesser also have a nagel on it as well?
Yeah, sure.
It's just the same thing but bigger.
Yeah, you can see a Bowie knife, longest Messer, Kriegsmesser. Always getting bigger. So I think this would be the right knife for your Americans, because your Americans always like the things big and bigger and bigger.
So a Messer is a knife, but it's basically the size of a sword.
Of a one-handed sword, yes.
So why do we differentiate between a Messer and a sword? Why not call them swords?
Because they're not swords, they're Messers. Because sorry for that. You get Zünfte in the medieval times. How do you say Zünfte? Like a butcher, like a baker, like a guild.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guild, yeah.
And there have been the guild of the swordsmaker, and there have been the guild of the messer maker, of the knife maker. And the knife maker are only allowed to make knives. So, yeah, that's it. And the sword maker making swords. And there are sometimes in the European history and in the areas in the what we now call Germany, that not everybody has been allowed to carry a sword, but they needed a weapon to protect themselves, or useful thing, like a useful tool, and they are allowed to carry knives and long knives, but they are not allowed to carry swords. So, yeah, and there has been a really lot of long messer around. If you look into the churches or in paintings, especially from the Dutch, you've seen peasants on a wedding, peasants on a fest, they're dancing, and on the side they have longest messer. And you see also the brawls with the longest messer and the daggers, because like now weddings, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drinking, and nobody starts a fight. And then the messer comes out.
And just to point out to our kind of listeners or watchers, so if you see the hilt has a knife hilt, right? More than like it looks, it's constructed in more or less the way that a knife is, with two slabs in the rivets, which is not the way that a sword hilt is constructed. Yeah. So it's kind of like a big steak knife.
Just imagine a dagger. A dagger is symmetrical, like a one-handed sword is, or a long sword is symmetrical. And a messer is not symmetrical. And you get at some points the messer and the longest messer is more useful as a tool. Because if you're looking for the shape, you see, I have seen pictures that farmers use the messers to kill snakes and to chop even, I think, harvest a little bit or something else. A messer is a tool, and a sword is a weapon. For the peasants, there is the importance more there that they have to use a tool, and the messer is a tool for them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, my next question would be, the way that it fits this definition seems like it should be everywhere, but weirdly, we only see specifically German sources regarding messer specifically. Why do you think that is?
What do you think about sources, or is your definition of a source? A fencing book or a fighting book?
Yeah, I would say I guess I'm talking about specifically fencing sources or treatises, things like that. Because I'm sure that there are obviously artwork. It's probably everywhere.
No, not so everywhere. Especially in the German speaking area, or also a little bit in the Dutch area. Like we talk about from the paintings with the Dutch peasants having a marriage. Or a wedding,
you see it some in Italian. There's some in Italian artwork too. There's a weapon they call the storta, which is basically a messer. It's very similar. You'll see that in some artwork as well.
Yeah,
and I mean a falchion is not super different. It doesn't have a nail on it, but it's not like construction-wise. I think it's also quite similar.
Yeah, but the falchion is more or less, I think, a very heavy chop or a more chopping weapon with a thicker blade, and normally with a sword grip, and not especially with a messer grip. And one of the things with the messer, or how the Legküchner uses the messer, is that it is very thrust orientated, and with the falchion, thrusting is not so good. It's not the primary thing with the falchion. But coming back to why is in the German, I think this has something to do with the guilds and the laws to carrying the messer instead of the sword. And the thing is, perhaps there has been sources. Just look to France and in Spain and Italy or Great Britain, where are the sources from this period? Where there has been men-at-arms everywhere and fencing masters everywhere, but we have only so little sources from this time period. The most we got from the German. So it's its nature that the messer is in these sources, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, because the peasants and the guilds made the messer there, and other places perhaps people are allowed to carry swords or different kinds of cutting weapons. I'm not totally sure why. Perhaps we Germans and the German speakers, for example, in Austria, and also in Dutch, like the messers because they're useful and they're simple and they're cheap to make. So at one point I'm thinking why they are not in Spain and why they are not in England and in northern parts, because they are useful. Where have they been?
Do you think that maybe it had something to do with the fact that like this was a peasant kind of tool that most people who were writing history books at the time maybe strayed away from it? Like, that's for the common folk. If we want things to move into, if we want these things to stand the test of time, maybe we leave the common folk out of it and their silly big knives. Do you think maybe that had something to do with it, or?
Maybe it could be because books have been really expensive to make. And most books, like the books from Thalhofer, has been made for a special occasion, or like that's my advertising paper. Come to me, I can show you this, for example. I can train you so you can stand your man in the fight. And most people who can afford these books has been the wealthy, and the wealthy has been noblemen. And why should they give money for? You're right, not so fancy weapon like the Messer.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing that happens to come to my mind, but who knows?
Yeah, it also could be. At the other hand, or the other side, the fancy book from Lechkücher has also been made for a purpose, to give noblemen that Lechkücher could have a church where he can be a priest. So this had been a gift or a donation, or how do you say, if you give money to a politician that you can get something from him?
Oh,
how do you call this?
A bribe?
Yes. And Lechkücher makes the same. He gave
it's called an endorsement book.
Nathan's being very diplomatic.
Yeah.
No, but I think, Colin, I think that one of the things that Hans said a few minutes ago seems to me at least to be one of the most reasonable explanations about the Messer thing, is that if other countries like Spain or like England or France or whatever, if they didn't have the kinds of laws that that say, all right, well, this guild you can only make knives, and this guild you can only make swords. If they didn't have regulations like that, then there wouldn't be there wouldn't be an impetus for some cheeky douchebag to be like, no, it's not a sword, it's a knife.
So it was a capitalist thing.
Yeah, possibly.
There's no demand, so why make them?
But like in England, they were carried very commonly.
Messers were?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, we have accounts of, like I was studying some Latin letters written by an archbishop that was over Cambridge, and he's writing to another archbishop, and this is in like the 13th, 14th century, and he's complaining about the students getting drunk and getting into street fights with their long knives all the time, and so it definitely was happening there as well.
It's cheeky kids.
So, but I have to say, like when it comes to like English sources, we basically don't have anything anyways. So it's actually not surprising that we don't have something about the Messer, because we only have 2 sources, I think, on the longsword, and they're both very, very difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Same thing with like
silver.
Yeah, but we don't talk about silver.
We don't talk about that on this program. This is a kid. This is good for kids as well. This is PG-13.
I also will say that while Messers were kind of a common weapon, they did become associated with nobility as well. You'll see in artwork, you'll see really like nobles carrying really fancy decorated Messers by the time you get into like the later 15th century.
Yes, but maybe this Messer are not Messers. This could be hunting swords, because you've seen a lot of really decorated hunting swords, which looks absolutely similar to a Langes Messer. And in some museums, they call them also hunting swords. So perhaps they're not Messer, they're to show off. And you see them really, really decorated with gold, with ebony, and on. And to show off, hey, I'm so rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Kushner also says not to teach how to fight with the Messer to peasants.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't let those uppity peasants figure things out.
My favorite line is he says, like, don't teach this technique. Don't show this technique to commoners, because it's like throwing pearls before swine.
Yeah. Throwing
or roses to he says something like roses to peg or something.
Yeah, he mentioned it I think 2 times. Wirf die Margeriten nicht vor die Schweine and wirf die Rosen nicht vor die Schweine. Yeah. Yeah. And Leckküchner has a lot of fun inside. So and it's the biggest source about one weapon ever. It's over 400 pages and only fencing with a messer and wrestling, disarms, tactical stuff inside. It's so famous. It's so brilliant
and beautifully illustrated, if I remember.
Yeah, also good illustrated. And then only think about the time to paint this stuff. Mm-hmm. I think at one point they separated the painting and the writing totally. And I think, how do you say, like a belt fabrication, like in the automobile. So one painter only
like
painted the legs. Yeah, chain factory. So you see a lot of similar leg positions. So perhaps they painted the legs and painted the leg, painted the leg, painted the leg, and the next guy painted the upside, the body, and the next only the hands, for example. And then the guy came in with the writing. Huh. Yeah, it's a big book.
Is that why you think sometimes like the legs are confusing? Like where the text is saying one thing, but then it shows like the other leg. Because there's sometimes where I'm confused. I'm like, wait, which leg is supposed to be forward? Because it sounds like I'm supposed to step with this leg, but the left leg is forward here. So.
Yeah, I think this would be one point, and the next is also as Alexander and Kimmer and I shot the DVD about the Langes Messer. We tried to stand in the positions like it's shown in the Leckküchner, and then they put the original painting over us, and it hasn't been possible for us to get this long legs. I think you need a Norwegian supermodel now with legs. Totally to get this leg length of the guys in the Leckküchner. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Or perhaps we are only too short. Maybe. Yeah. So the painting is not every time so with going totally 100% with the writing. That's right in the Leckküchner. I think because of this chain production thing, yeah.
All right.
But if you have a really close look to the Leckküchner, they are so hidden informations in the pictures, and this makes this book also so great. If you're looking down to the feet, you see, I think, like in a Toon cartoon, like you see the Roadrunner. If you see the Roadrunner, it makes bzzz, and you see shadows. And so if you're looking to the feet of the people who are standing in the Leckküchner, you also see these little lines, which for me is a sign for movement. That you see they are moving quick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever looked that close. I mean, I've looked at it, but maybe not that close.
Look to the feet, not only to the upper parts of the persons you're looking at.
So my next question is going to be, since we're talking about Leckküchner, so Leckküchner is definitely in the Lichtenauer tradition.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of the names got changed. Yeah. And well, why do you think that is? Why do you think that he changed the names of the master strikes and the strikes?
The hidden strikes and the guards. I think the most important thing is that he has to show that he teaches the messer and not the sword. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm not sure if it was David or Nathan who brought this to my attention, but it's specifically always very militaristic terminology. Like he uses military words rather than Lichtenauer, who would use agrarian or agricultural or hunting terminology. Is there any sort of you think there's something behind that, or is it, I don't know?
Maybe, yeah, because if you're talking about the ox or the plow or something else, it could be everything. So it's more or less perhaps a hidden speech at one point. At the other point, it's very Pictionary. If you look to an ox, what's the most impression of an ox? It's his strength and also his horns. So, and his horns are pointing forward. So this is the position of the ox. Then the thing with the plow, there are a lot of discussions about the plow. If the plow is really on the ground, and or why is the alba on the ground? Because normally a plow is in the ground, and so on and so on. And with Lekküchner, he make it easier. He had, for example, for the Hut from Tag, the Luginsland. Because the Luginsland is in high position. The Luginsland is a watchtower.
Okay.
Yeah. You're stepping upside the watching tower, and you can have a look over the countryside. This is Luginsland.
Interesting.
See have a view into the countryside. And the next thing is the Bastei. The Bastei is on the ground. The Bastei is very, very strong position. And if you're looking to the Alba, at the first point with the longsword, the Alba is not. Why do you put your point on the ground? It's totally defensive, but it's a very strong position to get a good defense. And if you know how to fence from the Alba, yeah, you're very quick in the Schankgut, and you can make really good Krumpau out of the Alba. And that's the same with the Lekküchner. The Bastei is looking totally what he's done. He's putting his weapon away, and it could be also invitation. You're not a threat, and you're exposing your head, and you're looking more or less, no, okay. I cut him to the head, but from there you can make the Bogen, or you can make the Storchenschnabel very good, and it's very strong. And I like to fence from this position also, but because it's an underestimated position, but it's at one point also clear. So. For example, Lekküchner has the Eber from the plow. The Eber is also a very strong position. It's and a lot of your attacks are very similar, like the Eber or the boar is attacking from below with his teeth, and he comes to and he's cutting. He makes a cut to your side. If you watch videos like a boar attacks, and this is very similar to the Eber.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, so I am the gears are spinning now, and I'm remembering our podcast discussion with Jessica Finley, who had a very interesting take on Alber. Do you guys remember what that was? I think she said that the point was down because it's the roots of a tree that... Yeah. Is that right? I think there's like a Alber could be a name for a certain kind of tree or something.
The alder tree.
The alder tree. Yeah.
No, poplar.
Oh, poplar tree.
A poplar tree. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a theory.
It's a theory, but I thought that was very interesting in that it also follows the Lekküchner agrarian hunting kind of terminology.
But the thing with the Alba and the plow is there are also often discussions about if the guard, which we now call the Alba, perhaps could this be the plow, and which we now call the plow could be the Alba, because then in some illustration there's a funny guy who has a stick in his hand, and in the end of the stick there's the bladder of a pig, and on a thin how do you say this thing?
String?
Yeah, street. And with this, he's going around like and hitting somebody on the head with a bladder, making fun and joking about it. And he's albern. So, and if he is thick at his side, that's the same position like you've been on the plow. The point upward, and yeah, he's making jokes about somebody. So, and I personally think, yeah, a plow is on the ground with the blade on the ground. Why not? So this is also one thing we have to discuss more and more and more. And that's just the nice thing about HEMA. I think the discussion never stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Leküchner, I think he needs a special language for his systems to show them you're not in the longsword. We are now in the Messer. So you need and it's also good for advertising. If he talks to somebody, I show you the plow and something, why should somebody come to him? But if he talks, I can show you the Bastei and the Lugensland, what's that? So this is interesting. If you make an advertisement, you need to get people interested.
So it was a rebranding effort.
Yeah, it's a rebranding. That's it. Yeah. At one point, absolutely. Yeah.
I like that.
So I remember, I think in our podcast episode with Jess Finley as well, she had also said that like in medieval German texts on dancing, that a lot of the terminology is similar to the ones in fencing books.
Yeah.
But then that makes me wonder, like, if there's no need to differentiate between terminology for dancing and fencing, why is there a need to differentiate in terminology between fencing with the Messer versus with the longsword? Like, is there a chance that maybe it was some sort of like a legality thing, like trying to find a loophole? Because if he's not supposed to be teaching a sword, because the Swords Guild or the Knife Makers Guild says this isn't a sword, right? If he's not supposed to be teaching that, maybe he wouldn't use sword terminology because it's not a sword. So he has to come up with something different.
Maybe, but at one point he makes also the same terminology, long point, Langort. That's the same in both. And Oberhau, Unterhau. Yeah, he gets special names for the master, for the hidden cuts.
Yeah,
that's it. Maybe you're right. Yeah, could be. Or it's only the advertising thing to make it interesting, to rebranding it, to show them and make something different. In the Lichtenauer system, because everybody who should have been a good fencing master has to use the Lichtenauer system. That's their declaration. I'm a good fencing master. I know Lichtenauer, because somebody who doesn't know Lichtenauer couldn't be a good fencing master. That's the one thing. But the other thing is each fencing master has to be a Mehrer der Kunst. He has to add something on their art, not only stay in the Lichtenauer, but you have to make an add-on. And if you could, you have to make an add-on. Then you only could call you a master. And
really?
Yeah. Every fencing master should have been a Mehrer der Kunst.
That's so it's almost like a doctorate. Like you have to have
something.
You have to have a thesis to.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
You have to add something on to Mehrer der Kunst. That if you give it your art to your students, there should be something more to increase the art of the fencing and increase the art of the fighting. Not because I think this is very European, that we start somewhere and we have to increase and we have to add on, and not only to stay always at the same position. Yeah, and so the Leküchner, for example, show me a source about the longsword which is even nearly as big as the Leküchner. You can't show me. It's not there. It's
Yeah.
just not there.
Yeah.
And for Lecküchner is for me the key to unlock all the biggest parts of the longsword, because a lot of the techniques you use it in the Langes Messer you can use on the longsword one per one. I also made a workshop some years ago about deploying techniques from the Lecküchner on empty hands or on modern knife fighting or tactical knives or a tactical pen and on the longsword. And this has been really interesting because a lot of the techniques you can use also empty hands, and this is really nice. For example, the Zornhauer is an empty hand, perfect, or the Wecker or the Entrust, really cool moves with empty hands. Yeah, that's really, really nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, as a longsword fencer and a messer fencer, like as you said, Lecküchner is really key in understanding longsword, because a lot of times Liechtenauer, like the text we have, will have just a short description of a technique.
Yeah.
But then when you go and you look at that same technique in Lecküchner, he's got 10 different variations on it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's much more helpful to be like, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on.
Yeah. It makes it easier. It's the unlocking of the Liechtenauer longsword system and in a lot of points. And one of the most important things in Lecküchner is the breaking of the guards. He shows you the classical how to break the guards with the hidden cuts, and after that he tells you, yeah, they are okay, but there is a better one. The best one to break the guards is the long point. And the long point is for Lecküchner not only the guard long point, it's also the thrust, a thrust. And if you can use that, forget the rest. And there is also the thing with the Lecküchner. The Lecküchner is for me the source. After that, the German rapier fencing or point fencing and the German cutting fencing with sabers are separated. There is both, and after that, there you get the separation. Lecküchner, for example, is the first thrower in history who describes a perfect Ausfall, like in modern fencing, a perfect straight thrust. He describes it at first time backwards, but after that he also has it forward. And now, hundreds of years later, they're teaching it in the same way because it's a perfect way. Yeah? And there it is. That's really great.
We don't have there's not a print version of Lecküchner available, is there?
There is.
There is?
Yeah. Jeffrey Vorgänger.
I don't know if I have it in front of me.
Oh, not only does it exist, but David has it.
Oh, David has everything. If it's ever been in print, if it has ever been in print, David has one. It's like
there's two problems.
David is actually the Library of Congress.
I'm gonna find it.
Well, I meant specifically for fencing stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because
the one thing is, some people of our clubs make a transcription, but that's only in German. And Dr. Jeffrey Vorgänger had made a book about Lecküchner. Unfortunately, the pictures are really small and only in black and white. And there's only, I think, the English translation and not the German. Could this be? I think so. It is. Yeah.
Actually, so I don't know if you are aware, Hans, but one of the things that we have been kind of plugging on the show is that Michael Chittister has been doing the facsimiles, and so the ones that he's done so far, I know the one that he's working on right now is Fiore, and he just did. I can't remember the first one. I can never remember the first one he did, but they are gorgeous. And I'm hoping that he will do Lecküchner next, like fingers crossed.
Okay.
But you know,
Yeah, but I think you can get a digital version on the Bavarian fencing, not the Bavarian States Library.
Oh.
There's the Leckbücher, digital, not in absolutely high quality, but you can skip through it. Yeah.
Huh. I will have to look because I don't have anywhere close to a copy. But if there's a Forgang, is that the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea where my copy is.
Oh no, David lost his copy.
It's somewhere.
That's okay,
there's only, in my opinion, there's two problems with it. One is that it has low quality images in it, and two, Forgang has some strange ideas about how to translate things.
Thank you. You said it, and I don't have to say it. Yes.
He also, for whatever reason, he decided to translate Messer as Falchion.
Yeah.
Rather than just knife.
Or Messer.
Or Messer, right? So that's bizarre. But yeah, he has a lot of really strange, like, it actually makes it kind of hard to understand, in my opinion.
Isn't he the same guy that last week we were talking about this? Is he the same guy who translated the Capaferro?
No, he translated Meyer.
Meyer, okay.
Which also suffers from a lot of the same
problems.
No,
I couldn't remember which one it was, but I remember also it was a lot of issues with that translation. Well,
I mean, we have it exists, so I can't complain too much.
Again, Michael Chittister, if you're listening, we would really love a Luke Kushner facsimile. You can we'll just throw money at you at that point.
But then you have to know how to read Old German.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It'll only help you so much, Colin.
Well, that's okay because I also purchased. Oh, there you go.
So the images are black and white and they're kind of low res. So
yeah,
a lot of times it's not.
You kind of like have to squint to see what's going on. But yeah, look how massive this book is.
Yeah.
Right. These are all techniques.
It's all Messer?
It's all Messer.
Yeah.
It's literally called Kunst des Messerfechtens, right? The whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, he has...
Only Messer.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
He even has... he has armored combat techniques, which he applies to the Messer. So you can actually learn armored combat from doing Messer.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Wrestling.
Yeah.
You could really starting wrestling with the wrestling in the Leckbücher. It's good description and good, really good pictures.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think actually we covered this. So my next question was going to be what can longsword fencers learn from it, and the answer is everything apparently.
Yeah.
Which is
a lot of disarms, a lot of wrestling, and really unlocking, for example, the Zornhaupt, the Wecker or the Grumpau, the Zwerchhau, which is the Entrustau, and you even can get and use strike, which is not one-to-one in the Lichtenau system, which is the Winker. In some sources it's called the Sturzhau, which is very similar, or which is the Winker with a longsword.
Mm-hmm.
And the Winker, it's nice. Yeah, at some point it's really working good. I think it's working better with a shorter blade, but you can also use it sometimes with the longsword. Yeah. And Leckbücher has so much fun things for like the Scorpion, the Storchenschnabel, putting somebody in the sack, all his disarms, or the most ridiculous way to die in a fight.
I remember that one. Because you demonstrated it on me. Oh. And I'm not going to forget that one either. But yeah, so anybody who ever has a chance to take Hans's disarm workshop, please do. Please bring a carrot, and please ask him to demonstrate on some poor soul the bunny hop.
Yeah.
The bunny hop of death.
The bunny hop of death. Yeah.
Hans's workshops can be summarized with the 3 words: carrots, bags, and ringing bells.
Maybe.
Let's not forget also Lekushner's wonderful putting your opponent in an arm lock so you can play backgammon.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Lekushner's book is so long, is because he just like started throwing random shit out there. It was like, you could probably do this. That's a fun way to play backgammon. Also, if you have a bag handy. Also, have you ever seen a bunny rabbit?
You can use it.
It makes so much sense now. I didn't realize board games were a part of this. That's why Hans absolutely destroyed me at card and board games the night before Vo. Do you guys remember that? I wasn't sure. I don't think David was awake, but I think Nathan, you were awake, and we were playing. I forget the game we were playing. It was like a dice card game, and Hans was destroying everybody. I think he beat us by like 100 points or something insane. That's right, because that's why I learned that he was Bavarian, because he was saying the whole time, Germans don't lie. Germans don't lie. You can trust me. Germans don't lie. And then I said, then I caught him in a lie, and he goes, well, I'm Bavarian.
Yeah, that's right.
Good times. So
that was part of one of the games that they played at the Schützenfest, was who can tell the best lie.
That would be that. Oh, I'm terrible at that. I'm not entering that contest. But I had one last question. Actually, it's not my question. It's Nathan's question. If you want, Nathan, if you want to ask it, you go for it, buddy.
Sure. So Hans, you've been doing HEMA for a very long time, and I mean, at this point, I'm going to start sounding like an old HEMA person, even though David's been doing it longer than I have. But there's distinct differences in the feel of the HEMA community from when I started and how it is now. Like how we practice it, how we approach it, and stuff like that. And I was curious, what did HEMA used to be like way back when? Was it more exploratory? Was it more open? Was it more I guess exploratory is I think the best word, because what I feel like we end up doing now is we kind of, oh, well, this is how you do all these techniques and this is how you train. So just go and train in the training hall. There's not a lot of curiosity to it anymore, it seems like.
Yeah.
And and just how different is that now from how it used to be? Did it always be like that and I just didn't know it because I wasn't part of HEMA back then, or?
HEMA is now totally different because now a lot of trainers are there, which are the trainer of the trainer, or who don't use the sources, who don't look into the primary sources. They're looking only on the second or third sources of somebody else. For example, if you look to the fancy book of Dr. Jeffrey Forging, they look into the books, then use his transcription or his translation to interpretate. So if Dr. Forging give the techniques his view, so you don't use the view or the techniques from Lekuchner, you use the techniques from Forging. And just imagine now, I started this 20 years ago. So I trained a lot of people and I trained some trainer. So this trainer also trained third trainer. And this trainer is now giving training. What do you think really teaches this trainer? That the techniques from Lekuchner or the techniques from me? The techniques from me I gave to the second trainer. The second trainer also make it a little different, and so on and so on. So we got now the things which is going also in the medieval ages, that you don't train with the first one who make it, you trained with somebody who makes I'm not say an add-on, because I'm not sure that we or I could make something add-on that I am a Mehrere der Kunst. But now it is easier for somebody, for the average guy to train HEMA, because there are a lot of trainers out there. There are a lot of interpretation out. There are a lot of DVDs or books and a lot of stuff in YouTube. So to starting now, it's easier. But at one point, I think somebody who is a trainer has to look in the original sources, has to make his own interpretation, and has to get out there and question the old guys. Why does your interpretation is so? Why do you do the things so? And not only to do it like I showed him, or Alex showed him, or somebody else showed him. In the beginning, there has been nearly zero knowledge, nothing. There has been nothing. Just imagine, like I said before, we made the seminar with John Clement, and John Clement showed us something else, and then we had a look into the fencing books, and this has been at some points totally different. And that has been an eye-opener to really work with the primary sources. And it has been a lot of discussion, a lot of trying together, a lot of talking, a lot of training, a lot of, oh, now this is the Zornhau, and now this is the Zornhau. I think at one point I stopped counting about my interpretations of the Zornhau or the interpretation of somebody else. I stopped, I think, on this has been the 30th or 40th interpretation of the Zornhau. It's nearly a never-ending story. And now it's a more focused HEMA on tournament fencing. And at one point I see in the internet, and people, if they're talking about HEMA, they're talking about fighting with a sword-like object in a tournament, and that's especially with a long sword looking object in a tournament. That is HEMA. No, this is only a part of HEMA. This is only testing skills, and this is at one point also it's on a really big sporty side. Sportification, we got now things that is really sports, more or less sport fencing with a Fechtfeder. But most I've seen in the tournament, they have no respect for the weapon. Just imagine you're going in a fight with a longsword or with a langes Messer, and this tools are really tools for killing. And if you get an afterblow, you would be dead. Or I've seen people just rushing in and didn't get noticed even that they're stabbed, because they wanted to make the hit. And we tried to recreate a martial art, an art that could help you to survive a fight. And I think, what we now call HEMA is they're going in a lot of ways. We get this very sporty way with a lot of tournament fencing, and then we get all the guys who making the interpretation of the interpretation and deep in dicke in, and don't want to test it, that they only want to get the psychical or physical or metaphysical interpretation of the sword, and what is the sword and what is the old martial art. And then you got guys who train the art and like to get in sparring. So we get, in the beginning we had only one thing, and now we had, I think, 30, 50 different kinds of HEMA. It is big. It is nearly as perhaps 20 years ago there has been a little plant, and now we have a wood with a lot of trees, with a lot of different trees. I don't say that this tree is better than the other tree, but it's at some point, if you're starting now with HEMA, you could get lost in these woods. Do you understand what I mean? Or
yeah, absolutely. That was actually a lot more insightful than I was expecting it to be.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
No, it's great. Yeah, that's a very I can't think of the word, but yeah, insightful, very very poignant too. That I do see it becoming just a forest.
And forest, yeah, thank you. Woods.
And sometimes
forest, yeah.
sometimes we miss the forest because we're too busy looking at the trees, or sometimes we miss the trees because we're too busy looking at the forest. So,
and in the beginning, we had been a community from friends. Really, I think in the beginning, at 2000, there's been 10 people or 15 people in Europe who are coming together and planting this little forest. Yes, and now there's so many people, and at some points are really, really not a nice discussion on internets. There are people that say, this is my interpretation of the Shilha, I got their own interpretation of the Shilha, or if you use this interpretation, you have to pay me a fine because I got my rights on this Shilha, or that's ridiculous at one point. And also, I think we should discuss more in a friendly way. This is your interpretation of the Zona. Okay, fine. Why do you have this interpretation? Where is it based on the source? Where is it based on the physical strengths? Have you tested it in sparring? Well, it's okay. Let's do it. Let's try it. And then the thing is, I think also in the old times, everybody is different. So everybody has special ways to do things. Each body is different. So my Zona is not always the same like the Zona of a guy who is 2 meters and 15 or and weighs 150 kilos. It's different. Yeah, talking more, coming more together in a friendly way. I miss this a little bit. It's more or less a business and selling books or selling, or making money a little bit out of it, which is okay. If I'm not, perhaps 20 years ago, I should quit it to be a civil servant and going to martial arts and only train martial arts and selling martial arts. But this hasn't been my way. And I really adore people who have done this because they're going their way. And that's absolutely right. But I think what's not so good is if they say, I got the only interpretation, the only right interpretation about the Zona or something else. There couldn't be the right interpretation. The only way is to prove it going back into time, asking Lichtenauer or Lehküchner. And I think also they would say, oh, this is my interpretation. Somebody else has another interpretation. Yeah.
Also, even if you're talking to Lichtenauer, I can almost bet you that if you talk to him at one point and then you talk to him 5 years later, he's probably not doing it the exact same way anymore either,
Yeah.
because martial artists are constantly tweaking and perfecting and changing things. And, oh, this actually works much better. Let's do it this way.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is einfach the thing, the Meere of the Kunst. To add something on the art is you get a new interpretation, you get more experience, you get more tests, and at some point you get a different weapon also, maybe. Yeah, which changes. And also a lot of things is fashion. If you look into fashion, you see that things are changing, and also the things of the martial arts are changing, because the martial arts didn't fit into the fashion of this year, of the next year. So it has to change. Yeah.
Right. If you're not using your martial arts to impress your buddies on the hunt, then I mean, look how well that guy can take down a boar. You need to be at least as good as him, right?
At least.
But no, actually, I really love the idea of, everything working different for different body types. Like, obviously, you're 100% right. If a 6.5 foot tall man is doing a Zornhau, it's not going to be the same way that I do it, and it's not going to be the same way that Nathan does it, and it's not going to be the same way that anybody. I think that's a very keen insight into what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to make things work martially, test them, but they kind of it's more about the principles behind them than it is like the specific execution, I think.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if your Zornhau is this angle, or it's 5 degrees more angle, and so on, and but doesn't matter. The thing is a cut from above, with strength into the cut of the enemy. Yeah. And you try to get over the blade of your enemy, and to get the better line to stick the point into his face, and that's it with the Zornhau.
In the end, it's all just fencing.
Yeah, and stick the pointed thing into him, and go home and tell your girl, "Hey, I met somebody. Yeah, what have you done?" I stick my pointed thing into his face and going home. That's it.
I'm here and he's not.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have any other questions, guys. Did you have anything to add or ask?
No, I don't.
No.
David's wrestling with pickles right now.
He refuses to not be in my lap, and he keeps falling off my lap.
You let that sweet old man sit wherever he wants, David.
Stop falling.
All right.
So, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Thank
Hans.
you.
Did you have something else? Go for it.
Yeah, I want to thank you, and sorry for my bad English. I don't use it very much, so very often. So
no, please, thank you for joining us. I definitely miss talking to you, even though we did a test earlier this week. Man, it's always great to talk to you. I'm so glad that you were able to come on the show. And don't ever apologize for your English. Your English is way better than my German. So if this podcast was in German, we would all have a big problem. So thank you for doing the whole thing in English. I very much appreciate it.
And if you want to learn more about the mess, give me a call again, or
well, if some of our listeners wanted to learn, are you currently still teaching at Ox?
I'm starting again,
Great.
And now only teaching Langes Messer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's really nice for me.
So I will put a link to the DVD of Long Messer. I have already ordered one, and I can't wait till it gets here. But there's a DVD series that I will link in the description if you want to see more about Hans and his Messer fighting. And if you are in Germany, I think you have like 6 Ox has 6 or 7 locations now.
Yeah.
But you specifically teach at the Munich location. So if you happen to be in the area and want to test it out, definitely take one of his classes. They are a blast.
Thank you.
But with that, I guess we'll end the episode. Thanks everyone for being here and having this discussion. And you listeners at home, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hans.
Bye.
Great. Thanks, Hans.
Bye. Thank you.